So we know that fractions are parts of whole. We know that decimals are also parts of a whole, and we know that percents are also parts of a whole. So really, fractions, decimals, and percents, they all mean the same thing. You can use 3 different ways to represent the same value, okay? And today we're gonna actually show them on a number line. So here's a number line. I put the 0 here and the 1 here. So where would I put the half? So if it were a fraction, where would the half be? Well, the half would be right here in the middle, right? So what would each of these tallies have to be so that this half is right there in the middle? Well, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it takes 10 steps to get to a whole. Therefore, each tally must be worth 1/10. So this would be 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and of course 10 out of 10 would equal a whole. But then where's a half? Well, 5/10 is the same thing as a half. If we simplified 5/10, it would simplify to half. So here is our halfway mark. This would be a half right there. This dark tally right there. That would be where the halfway mark would be. Well, what if we were talking about decimals? The 0 starts here, the 1 starts here. Each tally would be a tenth, and we can change each of these tenths into decimals. 1/10 as a decimal would be 0.1. 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, and then 10/10 would be a whole. Again, where would the half be? Well, a half written as a decimal is 0.5. So this would be where the halfway mark would. So you can see that it matches with the fraction number line. Last one, as a percent. Well, as a percent, the 1 whole would equal 100%. If you got a whole candy bar, you got 100%. So the 1 whole, the 100% would be where the 1 whole is. Half, well, what's the percent for half? The percent for half would be 50%. So then each of these, again, there are 10 tallies. So if I need to get to 50%, each of these would be worth 10%. So then this is 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, and this would be 90%, and then we would get to 100%. And a half is equal to 50%. So that is where the half would be on a percent number line. So you can see that they all mean the same amount, just 3 different ways of representing them. Let's look at this next example. We've got 2 and 5/8. So based off of my number line, since I need between 2 and 3, I did my number line between 2 and 3 over here. Now the 3 is not at the end. Why? Because it goes by eighths. So I said each of these tallies is an eighth. So that's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. 8 out of 8 would give you another whole, right? So my 3 does not go in here because each of these were worth an eighth. So now that I've numbered it as a fraction, 2 and 5/8, well, here's 2 wholes. Here's 2 and 1/8, 2 and 2/8, 2 and 3/8, 2 and 4/8. There's my 2 and 5/8. So this is where 2 and 5/8 would be. Well, what if I changed the number line to decimals? Well, if it were decimals, instead of writing 2 and 1/8, I would write 2 and 125 thousandths. This would be 2 and 25 hundredths. Same thing as 2/8. 2 and 25 hundredths is the same thing as 2 and 2/8. So I wrote all of these. I changed all the fractions into decimals. And where would 2 and 5/8 be? Well, 2 and 5/8 as a decimal is 2.625. 2 and 625 thousandths. And you can see it would be right there, right? So 2 and 5/8 and 2 and 625 thousandths means the same thing. So that is also where it would be, right? I'm going to do a little dotted line so you can see it. And then if I change it to percents, well, it's going to be, these percents are really high because remember, if you have 1 whole, you have 100%. We have 2 wholes and then 5/8 of a whole. So it's going to be over 100%. The 2 wholes would be 200%. And then I changed each of these into percents. All I did was move the decimal 2 spaces to change the decimal to percents. So you can see I've got 212.5%, 225%, 237.5, and so forth, till I get to 300%, which is where the 3 holes is. Well, what is 2 5/8 as a percent? It would be 262.5%. So this is where 2 5/8 would be on my percent number line. And as you can see, it matches up with the other two. And this is how we represent fractions, decimals, and percents on a number line. They all end up being the same. The halfway mark was the same there, and then the 2 5/8, whether it's a fraction number line, a decimal number line, or a percent number line, it ended up being in the same spot because it means it's the same value.